Sí. Bueno, hola a todos. Well, welcome to today's seminar. We have the pleasure to have today Antonio Di Paolo. He's a former member of our department as a postdoc. So kind of welcome back home. And Antonio, after being here, he moved to University of Barcelona. He's currently associate professor already. So like that. Well, he's been working in this broad area of labor economics, education economics, and more specifically in what we could call language economics. Is that okay?
Yeah, it's fine.
And well, looking specifically at this skill language and the impact on the labor market, which in this area is quite interesting as a bilingual at least area. So it's been publishing quite a lot, which is reflecting that he's a young, brilliant researcher, and working with very interesting colleagues, co-authors. So it's really nice to have you back. Finally, we talk about that. And well, you have 45 minutes approx, and let's see what you can tell us. Thank you.
Okay, so thanks Ferran for the kind presentation, and thanks everybody for being here, also those who are at home. So it's nice to be here because it's one of the places in which I feel like at home. And actually tomorrow we will also present at Autonoma, which is the other place where I feel like at home. So a different paper. So today I will present this work, which is co-authored with Bernard Malien. Bernard Malien is a PhD student of our PhD program, and I'm advising the thesis together with Professor Ramon Caminal from the Institute of Economic Analysis. Actually, Bernard came here for your nice workshop on industrial and public economics, presenting another paper about language, but outside the labor market, because he focused on the cinema industry. And so today I will talk about learning Catalan, okay, especially the Catalan learning centers of the Consorci de Normalització Lingüística. So perhaps there is no need to explain what it is, but if some of you are still considering the possibility of learning Catalan, perhaps today I will try to convince you that it's good, at least for your skills in this language. So this is the outline of the presentation, and we'll try to motivate a little bit what we do, and also based on the previous literature, I will show you that we try to contribute to what has been already done so far, and therefore I will give you a short preview of findings just to figure out just to give you a hint of what we do. And then I will move to the institutional background. So I will tell you about the policy that we exploit here, and data descriptive statistics and clinical methodology, results, and then conclusions. So, well, what we know so far is that language matters. Okay, so language matters in many dimensions, and actually most of the papers are focused on the effect of language skills among migrants who learn the host country language on their labor market outcomes. Okay, this is the bulk of the literature, but we also know that language matters beyond the labor market in terms of social assimilation and other outcomes such as health status and so forth. Okay, so but studying the effect of language skills is not relevant just for the case of migrants, as I am, but also for multilingual settings such as Catalonia, in which, as you already know, there are two languages, Spanish and Catalan, and both are relevant. Okay, So actually the issue of linguistic preservation is gaining a lot of importance among policymakers. So there are several multilingual settings in Europe, for example Belgium, and but also outside Europe, and policymakers are spending a lot of money to foster the vitality of local languages, and to also increase the skills in these languages among... Sì.
Non si oye nada, ¿eh?
No? Il micro está apagado. Gracias. ¿Ahora sí?
Sí, sí, ahora ya está.
Vale. Okay, let me start again. So,
no hemos oído nada, ¿eh?
Vale, pues por eso, I start again. So, what we know is that language matters among migrants, especially, okay, for labor market outcomes, but also for social assimilations. But studying the socioeconomic effect of language skills is also relevant for multilingual countries. Okay, and actually, what I was telling before you stopped at me, thanks for that, is that policymakers are kind of investing a huge amount of resources in order to preserve linguistic vitality and to improve skills in local languages among the inhabitants of multilingual countries or regions. Okay, so what we also know is that language in education policies matter in many dimensions, and this is actually my main research activity during the last year. So I especially investigated the language in education policy that was applied here in Catalonia. We'll talk about that. And the point is that there is very recent evidence regarding the effect of other policies which are targeted to adult individuals who are already outside the education system. Okay, and this is actually what I try to do with this paper. So indeed, there are several recent works, okay, that are analyzing the effects of language training among migrants or refugees. Okay, and this is the only thing we know. So regarding the acquisition of skills among adult individuals and policies aimed at fostering these skills. But as you can see in the list of papers, the papers in bold letters are already published. Okay, as you can see, everything is super recent. So the oldest paper is from 2018. Okay, and there are others that will probably appear published in the few months, I would say. Okay? So the main message that we can we can take from this recent literature is that language training for adults also matter. Okay, but once again, this is just for migrants who want to learn the host country language and want to assimilate, or are forced to assimilate because of these compulsory policies that are required in order to acquire the resident permit. So therefore, what we try to do in this study is to show something else regarding another policy that was applied here in Catalonia in the end of the 90s, in order to understand what happens when the government provides basically free language courses to foster skills in local languages among the natives. Okay? So by natives, as you will see, I will refer to native individuals born in Catalonia, but also individuals born in the rest of Spain. Basically, we don't care about foreign migrants in order to simplify a little bit the empirical analysis. And so what we do specifically is to exploit the creation of the so-called Consortium of Language Normalization, Consorcio de Normalización Lingüística, at the end of the 80s, and therefore we focus on the metropolitan area of Barcelona, which is the, let's say, the place in which, at least at the time, most of the migrants, most of the internal migrants were located, and where most of these language schools were also located at that time. Therefore, after this period, the consortium expanded throughout Catalonia. So then we consider the first decade of existence, of the consortium during the period 1989, the first year of implementation of these policies, until 2000. for reasons that I will also explain later on. And so essentially what we do is to analyze the impact of the presence of language schools close by the place of residence on language skills and labor market outcomes using my combination of microdata and aggregate data. So the previous findings is that in general the presence of language training centers close by the place of residence is relevant for language skills. So it affects the probability of having higher skills in Catalan. Unfortunately, we don't have information about participation in language courses. Therefore, we try to interpret the evidence in terms of the intention to treat. So it's a kind of potential effect, okay, of being exposed to a higher number of language schools. And the effect on skills is quantitatively modest but super robust. So as you will see, I will present you a specification in which we also analyze the specific level of skills, and actually the effects indicate that the presence of an additional course per year increases the probability of being able to speak and write Catalan by 1 percentage point, okay, which is kind of small in quantitative terms, but once again is very robust considering different specifications. Moreover, we also show that there is a spatial decay pattern, that is the more distance with respect to the centroid of the census tract of residence, the lower is the effect of having more language schools. And also we show different falsification exercises which are aimed to give you suggestive evidence that what we do is a causal estimation. Okay, so we are not picking up other effects of the neighborhood. So then we analyze the heterogeneity of the effects, and what we found is that the effect of the exposure to Catalan schools at that time was positive just for individuals born in Catalonia. Okay, it seems strange, but it's not. Okay, especially because actually we presented this the first time in the Secretaría de Política Lingüística, because of course they are super interested on this work, and actually this is really what happened. So at the beginning, those who really benefited from the expansion of language courses are individuals born in Catalonia who were not able to learn Catalan at school because they were too old, okay, in order to be exposed to Catalan after the reform. So moreover, the effect is stronger for younger individuals who probably compete in the labor market with individuals who are slightly younger but were treated with the reform that introduced Catalan at school, and also for those who were low educated. Okay? So unfortunately, well, we didn't detect any effect on labor market outcomes. So we tried to analyze the effect on the probability of being employed, on hours of work, on occupation, and on the probability of working in the public sector. Well, we use an approximation, we will see. Possibly because the effect on skills is too small in quantitative terms in order to be translated, in order to induce any change in labor market outcomes. But also this is possibly, together with the results regarding heterogeneity, it's also possibly due to a matter of information. Okay? And actually now I'm trying to run a project to study precisely the effect of information provision on participation in language courses. So, well, the institutional background, probably you already know these things, but I will try to be brief. So after the Franco regimes, Catalonia, especially the metropolitan area of Barcelona, was characterized by a high share of individuals, of residents born in the rest of Spain with no knowledge of Catalan or very limited knowledge. Moreover, Catalan's native were also unable to write in Catalan because Catalan was prohibited during the dictatorship, or at least they had limited skills, okay? So they were fluent orally because this language fortunately was transmitted within the family, which is actually one of the topics I investigated in a recent paper. And therefore the government started introducing, after the end of the dictatorship and with the new democratic constitution, the Catalan government started introducing policies aimed at, recovering the use and the relevance of Catalan within the society. So the main intervention was the so-called Linguistic Normalization Act of 1983 that introduced Catalan as medium of instruction at school, among other things. Okay, so for example, the creation of the Catalan TV and Catalan newspapers, and also the establishment of Catalan as the mean of communication in local public sector. So we investigated this, the effect of this reform quite a lot. This reform matters for wages, matters for the formation of couples, okay? And also matter for the intergenerational transmission of language. So treated individuals who have Spanish as native language are more likely to use Catalan with the kids. So, however, nothing has been said regarding what happens with adult individuals who were not affected by this reform. And actually the government, after some years, tried to, the Catalan government, tried to, do something in order to give also to, let's say, older individuals the possibility or the opportunity to improve their skills in Catalan, because, as I said, native-born individuals, so individuals born in Catalonia, were not fluent from the written point of view, and individuals born in the rest of Spain had super limited knowledge of Catalan. And therefore, they created the so-called Consorcio de Normalización Lingüística in 1988, and then this consortium provided free language courses and is still working at different levels. Okay? There was a great budget effort. So at the beginning of the existence of the consortium, most of the schools were located in Barcelona and surrounding municipalities. Okay? So therefore, we try to analyze the effect of the exposure to language schools during the first decade of existence for several reasons. So, first of all, at the end of the story, we used, in order to get information about language skills at the individual level, we used the 2001 microcensus, and that's why, this is one of the reasons why we stopped in 2000, so in the first decade. And so then, as I said, the growth and expansion of the consortium, of the schools of the consortium, was mostly focused on the metropolitan area. And it's nice because the expansion did not follow any specific criteria, for example, according to the location of migrants. So the location of language schools was just driven by the availability of spaces, because these language courses are normally located in schools, civic centers, or municipality buildings. And so you will see this in the map. So then the metropolitan area of Barcelona concentrated most of monolingual Spanish speakers born in the rest of Spain at that time. And moreover, until let's say the beginning of the 21st century, the large majority of students of the consortium were either born in Catalonia or in the rest of Spain. Nowadays, so actually from 2003, 75% or more of students of the consortium are born outside Spain. Okay? And therefore, as long as we want to limit the amount of heterogeneity in the model, we just focus on this subperiod, and therefore we drop the few migrants that are in the 2001 census. Moreover, there is also a technical reason why we stopped in 2001, because we had to adapt, so we have to merge different shape files from the metropolitan area of Barcelona from 1991, 1996, and 2001. and it was super difficult to keep track of changes in the census tract outside the metropolitan area. So, well, this is essentially the map for one of the academic years. As you can see, so if we relate the presence of language centers with the percentage of individuals that read and write in Catalan, there is no any clear relationship. We can do that also for the presence of people born in the rest of Spain, or with other measures of, the concentration of internal migrants, and there is no any clear pattern.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, sure.
So, I mean, I like this figure a lot, but it also makes me wonder if density could be very different. I mean, to the extent that the population density could be very different across. So I would put it differently. Do you have the same graph? Would you put the same graph together with density by, because perhaps the darker areas have much more. I mean, to me, they should have much more population than the other areas. I mean, but maybe not. I don't know.
Well, according to my knowledge of Barcelona, this is not the case, because at that time was the most populated area actually. So this is Poblenou, which in 1992 was mostly an industrial area. But yeah, we do something regarding density, and actually we also control for a bunch of local characteristics that somehow should solve the issue. But yeah, we could do this map also with density. The problem is that we cannot really construct density and run a map for 1991. We should do it for 2001 only. So the problem is that we don't have a shapefile.
I would be worried about that difference, right? Because Barcelona changed a lot after the Olympics. I mean, I don't know if to the extent that it would affect your results, but I think it's true that many areas that were unpopulated in this 92 period then were dramatically transformed, and I mean the city is very different from how it used to be, even in the 2000s. So I mean today very different from the 2000s, and 2000s very different from 80s or 90s. So I don't know. I mean I really think I'd like to see how you control for these things.
Well, you will see this in a while if you have a little patience,
you.
and then we can talk again later. So, well, this is the overall area that we use. So this is just a focus on the main city of Barcelona, well, actually the comarca of Barcelonès. So this is the overall area we use, but then we also try to restrict the estimation sample to, let's say, the city of Barcelona and dense municipalities. So and then what we do is to combine different sources of data. So one is the microcensus. We have a lot of stuff. So it's the 5% of the population, and most importantly, we have self-assessed knowledge of Catalan from a 1 to 6 scale. Okay, and we also know the census tract of the current place of residence of the individuals, which is what we see, which is the geographical unit of measure that we consider in this paper. So then and this is related to the previous question. We also control for census tract level variables for different years, separately and together. So we use 1991, 2001, the aggregate census, and also the so-called population statistic of 1996, which is a kind of Catalan census. And so we take a lot of variables that somehow reflect the composition of the neighborhood, okay? And we also account for additional information that is time invariant, because we want to rule out other factors that may affect somehow residential decisions and so forth, and can confound the effect that we want to estimate. So one is the distance to the nearest public school, the distance to Plaza Catalunya, and the area of the census tract, but once again the area is measured in 2001. Okay? we cannot.
Antonio, super quick point. Did you only control for levels or also changes? I mean, would it make sense to also control for changes?
No, this is a good point. It's something that we could do. We didn't do that. So we control for levels in different years, and you will see that the results are quite stable.
Exactly. So kind of my concern is that the city is changing a lot, and so perhaps controlling for changes in your variables could also make sense.
That's nice. It's something that we should definitely do. Thank you. So then, essentially, we try to geolocate. We geolocated after checking all the changes in census tracts, the name of the streets, and so forth. The information regarding the exact location of language schools in different years with the shape file, okay, using the centroid of each census tract. And so, and here, this is the main information. That is the historical location of Catalan courses. It was a lot of cleaning. Bernard did a great job with that. So using QGIS. And we tracked all the schools, okay? We considered aggregation by center because we had the classrooms from the course 1989 until 2000-2001. So, and then we classify also the type of centers based on the type of building in which the courses were hosted, because as I said before, language courses might take place in schools, community centers, or other municipality equipment. And it is possible that different type of buildings may also pick up the effect of other services, for example, job training services. And so we also have information about enrollment, but it's not that nice, so it's very noisy. Therefore, we focus it just on the presence of a center. Okay. So, but we get the same results if we use the aggregate information about the number of enrollments, which are not students. Well, it's a long story. And so this is the picture when we split according to the type of school, okay? And as you can see, there are different type of buildings that may host Catalan courses, and we also try to analyze what happens when we separate exposure according to the type of building. So, in order to use the estimation sample, we restrict to individuals aged from 16 to 65, from 30 to 65, but then we also keep younger individuals to run a falsification exercise. So then, as I said, we exclude migrants born in the rest of Spain, outside Spain, because we want to avoid additional and unnecessary heterogeneity. And we also drop individuals who moved, for example, from Tarragona to Barcelona because they might have been exposed to Catalan outside the area that we consider. Okay, and so the final sample, which these are very few. So the final sample consists in slightly more than 50,000 observations who met the restriction. So this is the main specification, okay? So we try to regress first the skills in Catalan and then labor market outcomes of individual I living in census tract C using either OLS and ordered profits, okay? So, and these are individual controls, local level controls, year of residence in the same dwelling fixed effects, and this is our variable of interest, okay? So the variable of interest is this exposure measure, which is capturing a potential effect that is an intention to treat, and is essentially based on the number of schools that were located in a radius of either 500 meters, 1 kilometer, or 1.5 kilometers from the centroid of the place of residence. Then we sum all the exposure during different years from 1981 until 2001, and we also divide by the number of years in order to get a yearly measure of exposure. And so as long as the variable of interest varies at the individual level, this is actually a typo, okay? So there should be no any subscript I. The standard errors are clustered by census tract. So this is...
Super quick question, Antonio. Can you go back one slide?
Yeah.
So, just to understand, so I suppose that the mu is a fixed effect of multiple dimensions, right? And I kind of wonder if this regression is affected by the Goodman-Bacon criticism, of two-way fixed effect regressions. I mean, it seems to me that your treatment, to the extent that you can think that there are heterogeneous effects, either by time or by cohort treated, the two-way fixed effect is not going to identify.
But this is not a two-way fixed effect.
Or a variant of that.
No, but this is not a two-way fixed effect. This is a fixed effect for the number of years of residence in the current dwelling. Probably I should change the notation.
Years of residence.
So when you started living in the current dwelling of residence in 2001, right?
Fine. Okay, nice. So time is not here.
No, time is not here.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thanks for the clarification.
The problem is that I cannot hear you very well, so that's why I have to get closer to the speaker. Well, this is essentially what we do. So, if you live here, we count the number of schools that are in 500 meters, 1 kilometers, or 1.5 kilometers, and then we sum over all the academic years. So, then, as long as we want to rule out the possibility that we are capturing other factors, we try to control for local level effects, okay? So different local characteristics, and we also control for fixed effects of the municipality and district, okay? So we try to add this stuff here, but the results are very stable. So then we also try to exclude individuals who moved between 1989 and 2001, and we also try to, this is repeated. So, and then we also try to do two falsification exercises. So first of all, we use younger individuals who were actually not a target group of this policy because they were schooled in Catalan. So they were already received instruction in Catalan and Spanish, and therefore they didn't attend Catalan courses. So, the second falsification exercise is a random allocation of census tracts, okay? And then we repeat this exercise 10,000 times, and we look at the distribution of the beta coefficient of interest. So then we also try to split, to investigate spatial decay effects. We consider separately the number of schools in 500 meters, 1 kilometers, and 1.5 kilometers. And then we also try to run this specification in which we count the number of schools in 500 meters, between 500 meters and 1 kilometers, and between 1 kilometers and 1.5 kilometers, and you will see what happens. Then we also split exposure in 500 meters, which is the better measure of exposure for us, according to the type of building, okay? In order to consider whether different, let's say, hosting institutions have different effects, or we might be picking up other services provided by the same institutions. For example, a community center may provide a taller de whatever, so a course in something that could be relevant for labor market outcomes, or also for the skills in Catalan. And so then we also analyze heterogeneous effects according to several individual dimensions, but also local characteristics. This is not that nice, so we should better work on this stuff. So, so these are the main effects, okay? As you can see here, everything is very stable, except for these initial coefficients, which is slightly higher because we don't control for any local effect, okay? But then the results are super stable even when we are very, let's say, demanding with the set of controls that we include, because we include controls measured in 1991, 1996, and 2001 separately and all together, okay? So it would be nice to see what happens with the changes. It's something that we will definitely do. Thanks for the comment. And then our main specification is this one. Here we also try to control for additional household characteristics, but this in my view could be bad controls. So it's like the number of kids, marital status, and the number of adults in the family. I don't really like these controls. Probably I will drop this column. And here we estimate the model using ordinal probit or ordered probit. And as you can see, the main effect is here in the probability of speaking and writing Catalan. Okay? We also use a linear probability model for this dummy, and the effect is very similar, so it's 1 percentage point. Okay? So we retain the specification in column 7, this one, that includes fixed effects for the municipality and district of residence. So in this way we capture all time invariant factors that, let's say, play some role at the local level in a slightly higher dimension than the census tract. Then here the falsification exercises. When we take younger individuals who are schooled in Catalan, we don't get anything, which is nice, okay, in the sense that we are not picking up other effects of the neighborhood. And then when we also randomly assign census tracts, and we repeat this random allocation 10,000 times, we get beta, oops, sorry, this is not very easy to read, so this is the Z. So the beta coefficients are centered around Z.
The individuals that you use for the falsification test, what is their level of Catalan like? I mean, do you have much variability?
To be honest, I don't remember. We have the descriptive tables in the paper for this subsample. For sure, they are more likely to be proficient in Catalan, but they are not probably entirely proficient. Yeah, this is a good point.
Because I mean, you could get insignificant coefficients, but because there is not much, right?
No much variation. No, but there should be some variation. I can check. Well, there is some variation. So it's like the probability of speaking and writing is 83%. So there is some individuals who are in this cohort that are not likely to, that are not able to speak and write. And actually, if we compare this with the main table, so from the main sample, excuse me, something that I don't remember, is 0.34 for the overall sample, but it's going to be 0.7 for Catalan speakers. Okay? So, I mean, there is some variation is there. So, then here we split according to the exposure measure, according to the radius. Okay? So, as you can see, there is a spatial decay in the sense that exposure at 0.5 kilometers matters more than exposures at 1.5 kilometers. When we put everything together, it is considering from 0.5 to 1 and from 1.1 to 1.5, we see that what really matters is exposures at the very local level. Okay? And actually, we also see that in general, everything works, okay? So, but especially schools are more likely to be relevant. That is, Catalan courses that take place in schools are the most relevant ones. However, we don't, when we put everything together, we don't reject the null hypothesis that all the coefficients are different, which is fine, okay? So that's why we essentially retain this main coefficient. So then we try to restrict the sample according to the number of years of residence in the current dwelling, because we don't know exactly what happens for individuals who move, and therefore if we retain individuals who stayed since the very beginning of the consortium, who are not those who decided to move away or in places in which there is a language course, we essentially get the same stuff. And therefore we obtain suggestive evidence that endogenous residential decisions are not driving the results. And so finally, we also try to restrict the sample to Barcelona and surrounding municipalities in order, because as I said before, we are not exactly able to control for density in 1991, because of course density in 2001 might be affected by the presence of language schools, and we get just slightly lower coefficients, but the main evidence is there. So then when we move to heterogeneous effects, we see that this is demonstrating results, this one. So the effect is only taking places for individuals born in Catalonia. Right? So these are the guys who really benefited from the geographical exposure to language courses. Okay? And actually individuals born in the rest of Spain did not improve their skills in Catalan thanks to the exposure to language schools. But then there is also something related to education. However, sorry, you can see it. However, we don't reject the null that the two coefficients are the same. And then there is also something regarding age. So among individuals exposed to, individuals in the target group that is not schooled in Catalan and therefore belonging to our main sample, those who most benefited from the exposure to language schools are the youngest, right? The youngest cohort, which in my view are probably competing for the same jobs with individuals who are slightly younger who were schooled in Catalan. And therefore they try to, get more skills thanks to the presence of Catalan courses. And finally, this is something that, we have to do it a bit better, because I think it's very interesting and it's actually related to the previous questions. We don't get anything really clear in terms of the statistical significance of the effect when we split the sample according to the proportion of people born in the rest of Spain, or the proportion of individuals who are able to speak, this is a typo, this is speak and write in Catalan. So essentially we get the same coefficients, but I think that this is something that we should do a bit better, because there should be something going on, right? So finally, labor market outcomes. As you can see, there is absolutely nothing. So this does not mean that Catalan skills are not relevant for labor market outcomes, but just that the small effect that is induced by this exposure does not translate into better labor market outcomes for individuals in our sample. Here we use hours of work, the dummy for working part-time, public sector, or having a high-skilled job. We also try to control for endogenous selection into employment. There is absolutely nothing. And well, these are essentially the results. So we investigated the effect of this geographical exposure, and using the first decade of existence of the consortium, and we found that the effect of this, let's say, potential treatment is positive for skills in Catalan, but very small in size. Okay, super robust, but very small in size. The effects are more pronounced, so actually exist just for younger individuals, maybe with a lower level of education, and especially for those who were born in Catalonia, who were able to acquire writing skills thanks to the availability of language courses. Of course, if we do this nowadays, the picture will be clearly different. However, there are many other complications, because after 2000, the government tried to locate language schools according to the presence of migrants. Therefore, it creates an endogeneity issue regarding to the presence of schools. And so, and finally, as I said before, the additional skills in Catalan induced by this intervention do not translate into better labor market outcomes, which is probably due to the fact that individuals who are actually affected by the policy do not really need these skills in order to get a better job, because they are already Catalan. But there could be other possibilities. If you have comments, please let me know, because it's something that it's not completely clear from the data. And that's it. I think I adjusted.
Okay, it's perfect. Time is perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Anybody would like to ask a question?
Well, you may have to, after my question, just some sort of summary. No, you can do it. Just, no, you do it. Summary. Well, no, I have two questions. The first one, it's, I don't know if it really matters, but so there is any rule preventing anyone attending a specific school? No. So
No.
you couldn't just show up there and say, I want to take this course, and that's it.
No,
So it's not kind of you must be from a specific area, like in schools, some primary schools. There are no zones. where you can-
So Ferran asked if there are specific criteria to attend a course located in a given neighborhood, and no, there are not. You can just attend the course you want. Actually, one question that we received in previous seminars or workshops is the extent to which what matters is not just the exposure around the place of residence, but also the exposure close by the place of work. Because some individual might go to the Catalan course that is located, very close to their workplace. And unfortunately, we don't have this information. So we don't have any information about the place of work. But some days ago, I was thinking about that, and in the census, there is information about commuting, and perhaps what we should do, what we should do together with this exercise with changes in neighborhood composition is to restrict the sample to individuals who commute just very few minutes from the place of residence. But no, there are no any criteria. The only point is that schools are busy in the morning for normal school activities, and therefore Catalan courses that take place in schools are run just during the afternoon, evening. So this might somehow change the composition of students who attend the courses located in schools. But fortunately, so the heterogeneity effect, that is, we see that individuals who are low educated, who are probably those who are less likely to work, are those who benefit the most, and actually also try to restrict the sample to those who are employed or not employed. We get the same results. So this is the only issue that might be related to your concern.
Well, and the second question is, you actually, I would say, suggest that there is some sort of well, you want to explain why you increase the skill in language, in Catalan, but you cannot find any labor market effect whatsoever. And that is related, that you have proof in other papers that these skills do matter in the labor market. Okay, maybe it would be interesting, just a brief summary of who benefits from learning more Catalan in the labor market. Because what you say is that who's learning Catalan, according to your data, your analysis, are already Catalan speakers. Okay, so are Catalan speakers those who benefit in the labor market from learning more Catalan?
Well, are Catalan natives, so the individuals born in Catalonia.
Okay.
And then, of course, most of the individuals born in Catalonia are also Catalan speakers, but not 100%. But yeah, one of the first papers we published about the effect of skills actually shows that those who benefit the most from skills, not from this, but from skills, are those with a high education level, which could be consistent with this. So, I mean, as long as here we get that the effect is slightly stronger for low educated individuals, this could be related to the point. But still, there is something missing.
Thank you.
Any other question?
Ask it Tommy, if there's somebody else.
Yeah, is there anybody from home who would like to ask a question? Okay, Amado?
Well,
I don't know if you actually mentioned this, Antonio. I was just wondering if you have data for other languages or just Catalan or.
No, in this sample, just Catalan.
Okay.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for your presentation. I think it's,
And
oh,
Well, Amado is asking a question. If you can wait 2 minutes, please.
yeah. Well, on one side, I think that the studies is mostly relevant in terms of not just Catalan learning of language, yeah, but the distance that exists from home to the center, where you can learn anything. Yeah, this is I don't know to what extent you are taking as theoretical framework or methodologies, this type of studies. Yeah, but I think that this is the point of your research. Yeah, of the research.
Yeah.
And basically a question of distance from the home to the center. Okay, and therefore it's not just a question of learning Catalan or not learning Catalan, but the main question is to put centers of any kind of public service, yeah, close to the client. And then, if my purpose is to know the effect of courses on labor market, I just only need to know two variables or basic variables that are have to take the course or not, yeah, and the effect on labor market. This is the way in which I think that I myself should approach. Basically, the point is the causes have an effect on. But going in your model, yeah, and as a person has raised in the metropolitan area, yeah, a key point basically in distances is not the physical distance, but the question of public transport. Yeah, it's if you have a metro, if you have the trains, the ferrocarrils of Catalonia close to your home. Yeah, you have and you live very close to this metro the station, to this train station, and the center is close to a train station in your own line. Yeah. Therefore, you have a lot more of possibilities of getting involved in the coast, yeah. And therefore, I think that this is a variable. If you are focusing on distance, yeah, you need to take into account this distance to the public transport mostly, yeah.
It's nice comment. So Amado asked if what may matter is not just the presence of schools close by the place of residence, but also accessibility using public transport. That's a good point. So actually we published a paper in 2017, also using microcensus data about the effect of public transport accessibility and private transport accessibility on over-education. So actually, yeah, it's a nice suggestion, because I can use the measure of public transport accessibility, but also the presence of a car to see whether the effects are heterogeneous, and maybe those who, have
Sometimes parking facilities, it depends on the part of the metropolitan area.
Nice, we will check that. Thank you. And having, so the point of attending a course and the effect, I don't have the information, and I asked whether it is possible to kind of merge the DNA of individuals in the microcensus with the DNA of people who participated into language courses at that time, and they told me that it's not possible. So nowadays it can be done with recent data, but it will be another day. And we will do it.
The other point is that if the presence of the large investment that the Generalitat and the Diputacions and the local governments are doing in these centers that are very visible in a lot of cities, for example here in Reus or in Bar, is worth it, si vale la pena.
Yeah.
And the point is that, you know, the final.
Well, it's a small message regarding this investment.
Yeah.
Okay, any other question? I think that there is no more question.
Okay.
Thank you a lot.
Thank you very much.